Looks like we got a reprieve in the end for today, huh, Bill? Pushed out another week.
Yeah, I don't know, did we still have that Outlook invite though for this afternoon? Are we gonna still go on it and see if anybody shows up?
I sent an email over top to everyone, just clarifying that we pushed the meeting to next week.
Well, we got the action plan done. That was good.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what? If nothing else, Bill, we reprioritized Frederico's work because he was gonna, on the week of the 29th, he was gonna play with the control gates. So at least we got him working on the feed systems, get those done and ready.
Yeah, we can get our
So it was
influence. Get our
definitely a
influence,
worthy exercise. What's that?
and we can get our influence meters working again,
Yeah. Well, hopefully next week.
hopefully today.
Well, even better. Even better if that's the fix.
Yeah, that's what Chris Hayes' email said.
It'd be interesting to see if they come online and all of a sudden both of them are working.
Well, they were both working, they just weren't given the same number.
Well, but that tells me one of them wasn't working. You know, you got to give me plus or minus, maybe 5 to 10% anyways. Otherwise, we don't have a redundant meter.
Well, ISCO's coming on Tuesday.
Correct.
Hey. Okay, we got a quorum.
Mhm.
Hi, how is everybody?
No tornado came, that was good. Anybody get any,
We didn't need that extra excitement anyway.
anybody get any,
Right. After all this garbage, like one, 2 inches of rain, hell of crap, you didn't even get to do it right. I mean. It was fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
No, set up all night, right?
Confirming a quorum, Mr. President?
I think we've got a quorum, we've got, I think with. Vote wise, with Albany and Troy and Rensselaer and Coase.
We got 7.
And I think Gary can even sit in for 2 communities on this.
Right, if you need Green Island.
Yeah, Maggie's not able to attend. They're doing a water quality inspection at their
Yeah,
plant today.
okay. State Department of Health and Albany County Department of Health. I know it was scheduled for today, I wasn't sure what time.
So are we streaming or?
We are streaming.
We're
Thank you for the
streaming,
reminder.
so I guess I'll call to order this July version of the CSO Full Communities Corporation. And we have present myself from Albany, Chris Powers, our treasurer from Albany. We have Gary Nathan from Coase. We have Bill Smart from Rensselaer. We got Andrew Goldman from Troy. And no one from Waterville. And Gary Nathan can also represent Green Island because he's an alternate. And we've got Mark Casiglio from CDRPC. Tom White is on somewhere in Wisconsin.
He's enjoying his cheese.
And Mike Miller's online with us. So welcome everybody. So did anyone have any comments in regard to the minutes? We need to take a moment and take a look at the minutes. If there's no comments, we have a motion to
I'll make a motion to accept.
approve the minutes. Have a second.
I'll second it.
Andrew, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Mark, are you gonna do something for the financial?
Sure. So program construction budget actual is running about just under 90%. to the annual budgeted. The admin funds are tracking at 33%. These financials do not reflect the invoices that were submitted for July 1st, and which will be on the agenda for approval today.
Okay. Any questions? If not, we'll move to vendor invoices.
Just the two invoices related to the Beaver Creek project, one for Castleman and the other for Keller. Total is 382,000 and change.
Okay, so those are both in regard to Beaver Creek. And we're just wrapping up with the general contract and the electrical contract. So
This is Act 35 for Keller, right? So I can't, is there any more after this related to it?
yeah, we're not at final. I think we have released some retainage and
Would retain to be the next one.
but we're mostly all of their stuff was the building, but what's left is just some of the startup of some of the equipment that was in their contract. So chemical feed system startup, and they had the gates and the flow meters. So flow meters they've been turned on, but the ISCO's coming next week to do the calibration startup on the flow meters, and we couldn't really start chlorinating until we had those things tuned, because you can't really manually adjust the chlorine during a storm.
No.
So can I have a motion to accept and pay the invoices?
I'll make the motion.
And a second? Second. Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Then build up, maybe for Andrew's benefit based on our last meeting. So we haven't submitted this to the FC, right? We're going to approve the invoices and then we're going to submit this portion for our reimbursement. Andrew has to do the same.
No, I've,
We've already done it.
and I transmitted these to Paul Johnson yesterday.
Okay, so you otherwise you would have, but he did it for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Bill's been helping out big time.
no, the only thing that's going on right at the moment with Troy was on the 01 financing.
Yeah.
Which really affects Cahose's
Mhm.
projects. I think there's one Polk Street invoice that's in that.
Okay,
I emailed you, so Paul Johnson asked me to fill out the
right.
requisition, which is requisition number one on that financing.
Yeah,
And his email said he thought the treasurer could sign.
right, because I remember you forwarded that to Russ and I, or sent us an email.
Yeah, so if,
And I've been trying to have, Russ do those items, because that's really part of that's in his wheelhouse. But after a few days, he doesn't do it, then I just do it, so I'll do it, yeah.
so, if Paul Johnson says the treasurer can sign it, then
Okay.
I
Do
don't
we
know,
still have,
I don't know, besides that, if
Yeah.
the mayor could sign it, you'd think somebody could sign,
right, we have at least one person in the finance office, and I think they're a treasurer, so we'll get that figured out.
So just to be clear, so even though we did the paperwork, the money is going to be sent to Troy.
right?
And then back to the pool. This is where we've lost it over the
Well, it
years.
goes-
Right, it gets, yeah,
So that money is coming to you, your percentage of, what is it, 8%?
Right.
Of these invoices, that's gonna come into your coffers. And then the pool,
Then we need money to go to the
Yeah.
whole community's
Right, and then it
pioneer
goes
account, and then.
over to,
So you're going to she's gonna get an invoice from the pool community or no? How do we
Yeah,
do it?
well, okay, this is, in fact, I sent a couple of things
The
to,
one time Tom was in
I
there.
sent a couple of things which we could bring up on here, because I guess we're talking about the next thing on the agenda, which is some EFC things. I've been focusing on Cahose's stuff, and there's Tom White has given us a spreadsheet off of the QuickBooks that had all of the outstanding invoices for Albany, but let's see, if you bring up the one that says payment to the pool communities first. So there's this spreadsheet. I'm showing our financings from Albany. We have 1400, 1401. 1402 was Beaver Creek. I'm not really
Okay,
looking at that because I was really kind of focusing on what we owed to Cohoes and the other communities. But this is showing from these disbursements that we had like 3.5 million dispersed to us from that are relative to Cohoes projects. So that is that. Now, if you close this spreadsheet and open the next spreadsheet, this is my sorting what Tom had provided to me. Tom White had provided to me in regard to what we owe Cohoes. So this is sorted on these various projects. So SSS 10, Arcadis are the engineering, and then and then Carver's is the next bunch, and then CHA on 12, which is Fleet Street, and there's a total there. And then, so what Tom had as being outstanding invoices is 2 million. Whereas what we have as dispersible, what we had been dispersed on from EFC is 3.5 million. So I provided, if we close this one again and go to the next thing, which was a PDF. So each time we get a disbursement, we get this listing of what invoices were paid against that disbursement. So I gave to Tom White this, which if you scroll down through it, relates to each of those disbursements that we had that came up to the 3.5 million, so that we can get that resolved. The only other piece that I needed to work out with Chris Powers here was what we had already paid, because we'd made some payments that amount to about $1.3 million for various projects so far in the long-term control plan. So some of that goes back to Watervliet's Route 32 project and so forth. But I guess, and Tom White also was trying to get from Paul Johnson all of the details of all the invoices that have been paid on all these various things, so he could be reconciling invoices of the Pool Communities Corporation, invoices with EFC. And of course, there's a little bit of accounting stuff that goes on with EFC that sometimes they don't always pay it. I told them on an invoice, they hold back, and so it gets confusing as to whether an invoice finally got paid in full at some point later on, or EFC needed to make that correction at some point. And I just wanted to go through this with you because I know we need to work with Tom White to get this process so where we can really start closing out some of these financings and know that we've kind of reconciled between the communities. Right. And we want to get you all the money that's been dispersed to us that we owe.
Yeah, our disbursement agrees more with your number that you had said, but we try to go through the CSO community. Tom here, he had sent us a list of all the items that we owe, but he had actually had it listed on it where we were reimbursed from the EFC. He was off. We've been reimbursed a lot more than he said. So that 300,000 you got was the initial Tom White bill to us to you. So that's why that number came to materialize. That was what he said it was. Obviously his numbers are off. What we borrowed is closer to what we owe you exactly. So that's the reconciliation here. Is why his number, 2 million and we borrowed 3 point, whatever.
Yeah, and part of and I can provide this information for Albany's financings. I don't necessarily get these details for Troy and for choice financings. And I think Tom White was, asking Paul Johnson if he could, provide the invoice, details. So,
Yeah, because we've got a meeting either at the end of this week or beginning of next week with our financial consultant, Janine, whose corporation has used prior also. Because we got the band coming up in August. It's 3.5 million. And they're asking, what are you gonna do? So, I need to provide some answers on whether we're going to be rolling it, which I know the administration really doesn't want to do. Or I want to ask some of the other options. Can we pay down some of it and then the rest of it possibly roll? Do we need to roll it for a year or can we roll it for 6 months? What's the difference in interest rates? Because I know, the shorter you go, the more you pay. So, yeah,
I mean, we want to pay this as almost as bad as you want the money and get this over with. So the hope is we can, maybe do a parallel track to investigate that, and we'll try to reconcile this before that all happens and get you the money.
yeah, and our financing, the 01 was supposed to be closing, maturity in December. And Paul's already talking about extending that to March because he's seeing that things are happening. I know we still have to get the last pay up on your Fleet Street project. There's still.
correct. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Mike and myself have a meeting Monday morning on that and on Manor Avenue sewer separation. So,
So if you could get a final pay up on that so we can close it out.
yeah, they've got a couple of minor things that they've still got to do. Dealing with Newcastle, you probably know, is challenging. And some of the people that work, they did have a super who was very, very competent. Right. But now he's gone and some of the other administrative staff is gone.
Right.
So the people that we're dealing with,
Don't know.
yeah, exactly. I don't think that they have a clue of what the project was about. So, but yeah, I want to get it all said and done too, because we're owed still a little bit more money from the GIGP grant too. Latest, yeah, I think we owe Newcastle like $400,000. You would think. Well, and it's been that way.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If somebody owed me $400,000,
right.
I'd be jumping through any
Right,
type of hoop
If I do
to get the money.
you mean if I just do this, I could get $400,000?
Yeah. Yeah. I
It
don't,
seems systemic. Keller does that with us. They always have about a $2 million aged out balance that they use for leverage from time to time, but they kind of like having that out there
yeah,
on us for some reasons.
But, yeah, so anyway, that,
So we're gonna work on that with Tom to get you paid correctly. And just to jump back to my real life example with I can go for Andrew's benefit. So you should be getting an invoice, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong. Getting an invoice from the CSO pool community, Tom,
Okay.
or your everybody, not just you, but
Right.
the whole community
yeah,
for those two invoices
Mhm.
there.
Okay,
So that's sort of, I think, where we lost the admin previously was our intermediary.
right,
So we're gonna try to do that more in real time and not wait the months and months the way it was happening before.
but if you get that disbursement request
Oh, yeah.
in,
Mhm.
if you get that disbursement request in and then it gets paid,
Mhm.
then that's when you get the detail of
Mhm.
what invoices were
Okay.
paid, which you can then give to Tom White
Mhm.
so that you can just match up
Okay,
what that is. The only caveat in regard to that with Troy was, I think there had been times when Chris Whelan had just paid in. It had already perhaps paid some of the, some money in, and I don't really understand what Chris was doing, whether
right,
some of the invoicing that he got from the pool communities, he went ahead and
you
and
just
got
paid it outright, or,
even before they were made dispersable, but
okay,
we've always been kind of holding off because we didn't do any bans, we did a line of credit, we still are using.
So 2 million on a lot of credit, yeah.
Line
Yeah.
of
I
credit,
think for our purposes, though, just for organization, wait for the, I would wait for the invoice. That
okay,
makes it easier. That's how I track it.
so
yeah,
if,
You're approved it at the meeting, then you're gonna get an invoice, then you pay your share, then we know, and then gets
Mhm.
fed back to us.
okay,
That's the way to do it. It wasn't done that way, like, to Bill's point, sometimes.
yeah,
Let's do it that way. going
yeah,
forward.
so if you've got your disbursement and you've got the detail of what invoices are paid, then Tom White could look through the invoices and see whether Troy had
Okay.
paid anything of those invoices.
okay,
Cause I know we had that going on with some of the stuff we were doing with Troy and Tom, but Tom, I think has to catch up with that. The other thing I asked Tom to do was to put all the invoices onto SharePoint, because the invoices aren't in SharePoint. The invoices to the communities aren't in SharePoint, so Tom said he could do that. It's just,
okay,
he's on vacation and he won't, it's gonna take him some time
I got it, okay,
to do that.
But in the meantime, we do get that disbursement request from Bill.
yeah,
If you could have the treasurer sign that.
yeah,
we get the-
absolutely. I
get the
put
ball
put
rolling.
that on my list of things. to
Yeah,
do. I made it to
he's
the
already got it.
bottom. Yeah,
He was just waiting for me to say that Paul Johnson says that the treasurer is okay to pay it.
okay,
Yeah, so my view is that as soon as they get approved, the meeting, you automatically go to the,
right, I'll send it down to her
Same
when I
day.
get back, yeah,
Uh,
That's what we were trying to do, and probably not as successfully in the past, but we'll try to get some procedure here near the end.
Yeah, now that these things should be able to get closed out, these
Mhm. Okay,
originally. Yeah, we still have about $280,000 on our original tranche that
Mhm.
needs to get paid down, and
Mhm.
Paul Johnson's. I think it's just that it's more work for Paul because he thinks they overpaid on some things and they needs to make some adjustments. And,
yeah,
and the 01, they extended maturity, and Beaver Creek, we've got a bunch of invoices into Paul, and we should be getting a next disbursement soon. I think he was holding off because we had some smaller bills and he kind of figured more larger things would be coming on the Beaver Creek. And I think the communities now have paid out all of their share because the rest was going to be under the IMG grant.
Right,
Except for Watervliet. And I've sent them a disbursement request and they haven't sent it in, they haven't sent it back. So I talked to Joe Lazzavita about it. And
yeah,
he was gonna see why that was and get it taken care of, but it's still
hanging out there.
not taken care of now. We kind of still owe Watervliet our share of what was the Weston and Sampson amount, which we waited until we could be dispersed on, so they might think that we owe them, so. But I don't know why they wouldn't ask for the disbursement on Beaver Creek,
Yeah, really.
and just close that out,
Yeah, you may want to give Joe a call. He wears a lot of different hats. Cause he also has building department or so under him also. So, but yeah. He may have,
So because you had these bonds, you didn't have to go through all this. You were getting bills previously from the pool community and just paying them as we were going along this whole time, right?
right,
Yeah, that's how that happened. Okay. So you're,
right,
and you're
yeah,
all.
because we have bands out.
Right, okay, yeah, so you're all clear with respect to what's owed to the.
Well, Co's is only financing for Beaver Creek.
Right.
Yeah.
We took an EFC loan for Beaver Creek. And for Columbia Street and Mohawk Hudson Bike Trail, we got our own bond resolution. We did not go through EFC. And we ended up, issuing bans off that bond resolution. We took out, 3.5 million in bans, figuring that would be enough to handle our cash flow.
Right.
Which between that and the grants is correct. But, the ban is a city ban.
Right. Okay,
I think,
Because I didn't want the same thing to happen. I go through EFC and they put a stop on it. I gotta pay the contractor. I can't jerk around.
I think some of the difference between, some of the difference in regard to Co's thing that I was seeing in the invoicing was in regard to middle fleet, which goes way back.
Yeah, that's 2017.
That we had a $500,000 disbursement in regard to that, and so.
And I don't understand that because
You had a
Mike
lot,
O'Neill, who worked for EFC at the time, came through and they did an actual physical audit on that project.
but that, so yeah, these projects have been done a long time, so we need to just close them out. The only thing that isn't really closed out is Fleet Street. And then the next stuff, we haven't seen a pay up yet on your Van Buren Street.
Yeah, I gotta ask about the process for that. So, cause I have literally no idea how to do this, for that. So they've submitted two payment applications. Do I bring them to you folks or how does? all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
work?
we're supposed to bring them to this meeting,
Okay,
so email them to me and
okay.
and Mark and.
Because Chris used to do that stuff and never ever talked to me. about it.
Yes,
I have no idea.
Yeah,
what the process. is
the,
for how I
the
need it.
process in regard to this is it's on a cost incurred basis.
Okay,
So you don't have to have paid the contractor to be able to submit these for payment. So as soon as, like a CDM, I don't know if CDM is signing off on the pay certification,
Mhm.
but as soon as you've got
Yeah, Darcy sends them to me.
as long as as soon as they've got your, that AIA
Right.
certification signed off,
Mhm.
they can be sent into EFC so
Okay,
that you can get the money on a cost incurred basis. Hopefully, if you got those into EFC and they got you the money in a week, you could pay your contractor and never really be,
oh, okay, yeah, cause I
never
didn't
really be
know,
out.
yeah,
But that's not what Gary's figuring. He's figuring, hey, that doesn't work that way. It doesn't, doesn't
They
happen.
always find something that they have a problem with, it seems.
But that's it. And if there's anything that's a change order,
Mhm.
you don't want to submit it to EFC until they've reviewed the change order. So I don't know if you've had anything for a change order.
Yeah, we had that one, thing, they came across 130 feet of, really, a sewer that was in really poor shape, bricks falling in and that, we had talked a little bit at the last meeting, so I took some photos of that. Sent all of that to Darcy and then we collected that information, sent it to Mike, I think the EFC, just like,
Mike
hey,
Boudreaux?
yeah, like, hey, heads up, there's gonna be a change order, he's like, thanks for letting us know, whatever they were, so they're aware of it.
So they should send an email saying it was accepted, so that that you could send in a pay app.
Okay, so I probably, I'm not sure, it sounds like I'm doing the process wrong, then I got two pay apps from them, I just submitted them to our billing folks in Troy just to be paid, so we can pay the contractor.
Yeah, you should send them at the same time. You should send them to us and we can put them on the agenda.
Okay,
And we can submit them to EFC at the same time.
Right.
I think, I think theoretically, we should approve them before they get submitted to DEC, or EFC, but
okay,
with the way.
and that's what I was trying to say, keep the process, but if the EFC is not being efficient, maybe you do it before, it's gonna get approved, maybe you
Right.
do it beforehand, that's a part of
I
that.
didn't know,
feel.
okay, I had no idea. All right, so from now on, for the rest of the payment applications,
Yeah,
you'll get them to us first.
to,
and
to
then
try
they
to do
have it.
things on a more real time. Now, I don't know what Troy's done in regard to bans or whatever for this Van Buren Street
No
project.
clue.
I mean, to keep it simple, I'd recommend just one email to the corporation and to EFC with your invoices.
Mhm.
You know, why make it complicated?
Right, okay,
Yeah, and referring to the financing that this is against, which is, I think, your 01.
Mhm.
Which is the same financing that, I just
Mhm.
sent you to be like the next one, if this one goes through.
Yeah, okay,
So project updates. Beaver Creek, I just sent a update of an action plan. We're flowing water down through the facility. We're not flowing through the contact tanks yet. We're kind of set up like we'd be in our winter mode. If we get a storm and it goes through the screens, we're still trying to get our flow meters working properly. And we're planning on very soon actually flowing through the contact tanks just to get used to working. We got a new operator. So we've got Stephen Geffert, and new guy is David Kosakowski. I guess he comes to us from having worked in Rotterdam. So we got an operator and an assistant operator and we want to start just flowing stuff through the facility and learning how to use the flushing gates after events. And Arcadis is doing the programming part of this project. So General Controls built the panels, but Arcadis has done the programming. And so that's and so between Castleman, who walked off the job and then brought a whole new crew in and has been kind of slow in getting everything going, and General Controls, who sometimes can be a little
tough to nail down
uh,
sometimes, just say.
and Arcadis and people taking vacations and everything, just getting this thing moving. But the concept is we'd get to the point where we could be feeding some chlorine by early in August and start maybe with some low dose of chlorination just to get the equipment running and see how things are going. Right now, we're kind of happy to be trying to do some manual operation with these gates because you never know when you're really going to need to do a manual operation.
Right.
It's hard to know how to trust automatic controls until you've run things somewhat in a manual mode. It's like, these gates in the facility are very big gates, and if they have to be used for some throttling during storms, you might want to have them parked in some intermediary position so that they're could be throttled down quickly. So we're playing with the gates, watching flow meters, putting some flow through the screens, seeing how the screens are working, and it's just a lot of different pieces that have to all work together.
The gates are probably motor driven. Do they have a backup hydraulic system in case power ends up? You also probably have
You mean
emergency
other than-
generation, but
Other than the Armstrong method,
yeah. Yeah,
no, I think you'd have a lot of cranking to do if you had to do that. So if the inflow gate failed closed, it would overflow this first weir inside the facility and it just wouldn't be treating it, be overflowing the weir. So the first gate with throttle to try to restrict the flow. If we're supposed to be able to treat up to 100 MGD, that's supposed to throttle, so we're only sending
Right.
like 100 plus the amount we're sending to Third Avenue for carrying the screening, so like 106 or so. Uh, There is a weir in the same area as the screen, so if you were letting more than 100 through, and it was before it overtopped the screen, it should go over that weir. And then at the end of the inflow channel is the gate to control the flow that sends it down to third. So that has to throttle when to try to restrict that flow, so we aren't sending too much down the third. We've seen in some store events, we're putting like 40 MGD with that wide open. But we've been discharging both the third and back to Beef Creek at the moment, so we wouldn't want to be trying to put 40 MGD down to Third Avenue, or we might end up popping out of the.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, all of a sudden, yeah, you see.
No, that's what's going on. We have our remote SCADA work, and we had North Point, another systems integrator, working with us on Ignition SCADA as our SCADA system. And so that's up and running and working. So that's Beaver Creek. There should be soon some invites to come celebrate. And haven't been doing too much on our last couple of projects yet, but those just don't have priority in the month, so. I know Van Buren Street's the main one now going on. I don't know how quickly that's going.
We've finished that block on Second Street. Now they dropped back to do some of the water service work that they needed to do from, of course, the 36-inch sewer pipe and all the water services are all on the same, plane, everything's, yeah. So there's, you had to remove some water services, put that pipe and then, put it over them. So, so they finished up to the end of Second Street. Now we're turning on to Jackson. We're going up the hill. The neighbors are a good time, everybody loves having the project going on. So that's been like a majority, Jake, our project manager, has been handling Joe Miller and Louise and that. And I've just been dealing with, customer complaints about where the porta john's been stationed, dust control, issues like that. So
Important stuff.
exactly. But no, they're moving along pretty good. Yeah. So we just had that one change order so far about that, that's still getting kind of worked on about that.
What exactly are they doing again?
So, the separation of at the end of Trenton Street, there's a stream bed that comes down during wet weather events. All that goes into the combined system.
Right.
So the goal is to separate that out into this 36-inch pipe that makes its way north and then west and south. It goes all over the place and eventually goes directly into the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
Filtered the whole way, or is there just straight?
It's no filtration.
Just go straight into the.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
just, storm waters, so.
Gotcha.
So when do they think they'll finish?
That's a great question. They're looking to pave, second, that little piece of Jackson and then fourth in like mid-September. So, I'm guessing around then is our completion time, but as we get closer, I'll know, but that's the goal, so.
Okay. And you had this deadline
Right, at December for the plan.
for Cross Street, though, you have an October deadline coming up, so.
Where do we get the October from? Because in the appendix A, it says December for plans.
For Cross Street?
Yeah, the Cross Street relining, like Cross Street Phase 2 or whatever it was called.
Oh, am I wrong about when that?
Because I got really, when you said that the last meeting, it was like, oh shoot, I gotta get moving on that. And then I was like, where did you even get that information? And because I only had the one book. And then I found this appendix A book, I looked through that, and I think it said December for plans,
But
if I'm.
yeah, I mean, it's in the consent order.
You can totally let me know if I'm wrong about that, because I did talk to Darcy and Greg about, we need to get moving on that, so.
Cross Street Phase 2. I had it on my spreadsheet as being 10/1/24
Okay.
for plans and specs.
Mhm.
Because they put these plans and specs things, a lot of these projects, they did the same thing. So plans and specs is 10/1/24, but the completion isn't until 12/15/25. But if it's only a sewer lining project, you don't need it.
Right, this really shouldn't be a heavy lift as far as coming up with plans for that.
So if, I mean, if you already have your financing, and if you have your plans and specs in October, there's no reason not to just
Do it then,
get the project
okay.
over with, but
So what's the procedure for that? I get the plans and specs from them and then I bring them here?
well, it's just that we have to do this notice of compliance or non-compliance
Okay.
in regard to that deadline.
Mhm.
Martin usually made an arrangement, like all 6 communities have to sign off that you met that milestone.
Okay,
Yeah, you actually have to have whoever your engineer is or whatever, Mark used to give us a hand.
Mhm.
The plan specs have to get uploaded to a site. And then DEC or so, they visit that site and then that's when they download your submission
okay.
and then they review it. At least that's how it's supposed to work.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah, there's been some confusion about what EFC reviews and what DEC reviews, and PFC is reviewing stuff for DEC.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've had that.
So if you're a month delayed, let's say, what are the ramifications? What happens?
Well, early on in the long-term control plan, that they were, they were being tough about
Yes.
these deadlines. I mean, it's good if you got a deadline that should be easy to meet like this one.
right,
Not to-
this is not.
Not
gonna be a heavy
not to have a problem with it,
Yeah.
otherwise you have to write an explanation about,
Mhm.
why it, I'm just imagining if it's just a spec for aligning that it's
Right,
with some sort of a drawing that shows where it is.
Yeah.
Their review time could be pretty long.
The only question that had come up, and this had come up, I guess, as part of our process with EFC on the financing stuff, was whether you were working all in the right of way,
Mhm.
or whether this involves some permissions from the railroad.
Okay,
Because I think this goes under the railroad.
I think so, yeah, I need to familiarize myself with it, honestly.
If where you're working is only on your city property or right of way,
Mhm.
and you're lining something under the railroad, I'm not sure that there's anything.
Right,
With
because you're
railroad.
not doing any actual excavation or anything else.
Right, right.
You know,
As long as you kind of keep it that way.
yes,
Yeah, that's my goal as
I
well.
mean,
I don't need any more difficult.
Do it real fast.
Yeah.
yeah,
We had a situation with the railroad and we're caught up on railroad, you know. that-
oh, yeah,
Well, we had a situation where National Grid came in and they were doing a new high pressure gas line up to where they were general. And somehow somebody in the process at National Grid decided that this had to be submitted to the railroad for approval because it was on a city street, but the railroad's overhead.
Okay,
And it just turned into the biggest nightmare you could ever imagine. I
okay,
said, well, I mean, we're in the field meeting and I look at the guy in charge and I'm saying, why did you submit this?
right,
yeah,
And the guy looks at this woman over there who was in charge of doing those submissions and just looked at her and just shook his head. It was months.
wow.
And
Okay.
And
they didn't need approval.
Right, right, didn't need.
You know, it's the same street, you don't need approval.
Yeah,
so I think that's, I know, Gary, you've got some things that are in their preliminary stage. Is
yes,
this month, are you submitting for WQIP?
yes. Yeah, I was talking to Arcadis about that. And as a matter of fact, last week, we finally got the official approval on our engineering report for Little C.
Oh, good.
Yeah, considering that we're already in design and have been in design for the last 3 months on that, so we can meet the October 1 deadline.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, matter of fact, during one of our job meetings, a Zoom meeting, I had reached, we were talking with Arcadis, and we said, you know, we haven't heard anything. Can you guys reach out and find out where we're at? I don't want to have this design done and find out we still don't have the engineering report approved, and I've got plans and specs done. So they reached out, and it wasn't a day later that we got the approval.
Squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so the preliminary engineer's report is approved.
yes, yes. Meanwhile, I'm gonna have preliminary plans and specs in August for my review.
They're gonna think you're so quick.
Right, one right after the other, yeah.
Yeah, and with Manor Avenue sewer set, like I said, you know, I'll be meeting with Mike and CHA Monday. And, we can go on over what we've got. That's a little further out, so we haven't been as intense on that. But we are moving ahead. And, as soon as we get, it shouldn't take that long to be able to finish up the engineering report and.
Is that
submit it.
due in October too? Or is that further out?
That's further out. Because I don't think we have to be under construction until 2027.
So I guess, yeah, we weren't planning on doing anything with WQIP for sewer this year. We're gonna do a couple of WQIPs for dam safety for a couple of dams and that's what we're planning on doing. We did put in some WIA applications for June.
Yeah, we've got a WIA application submitted for Little C also. Between the WIA application in and WQIP, I'm hoping for something. You would think, but who knows?
Gary, I did check. The plans and specs are due in 2026.
Beautiful, thank
Manner.
you, Mike. Yep,
So that's a ways out.
yeah.
That's pretty much it. So do we have anything else we need to?
The the IMG grants that you got for Beaver Creek. Will that be taken care of? The remaining invoices?
Yeah, so there won't be any more disbursements. So I don't know if the other communities can close out their long term. We have to keep open because we're still gonna have the engineering for the dose response testing and the wet weather operating plan. And turning in some homework to the DC early next year. So we won't be able to close out till later next year.
Yeah, that means I gotta double check with Paul too, just to make sure that all the proceeds have been spent. We don't have any little bit of. If it's a couple hundred or $1,000 or something like that,
No,
I don't care.
I think your last disbursement
Wiped it out.
did your whole finance.
That's my impression, but I've been wrong before. So, but yeah, if we're totally dispersed, then I think I'll be asking Paul, okay, so when do you want to go long term?
If you're not, can't you just net it out of the long term?
Yes,
So I think in the short term, if you keep the short term open, you're still paying principal on it. I don't know if you've got hardship on your long term that you,
boy, I forget. We used to, as a matter of fact, qualified for hardship.
yeah, you should check with them to see whether your finance was well, it probably says on your finance agreement whether your hardship
or not.
or whether
Yeah.
you had whether that was subsidized or what it was.
So you're saying it's beneficial not to roll over because you're just paying principal. You can keep it in the short term. What you were saying?
Well, I'm saying, yeah, in the short term, if you're not paying any interest.
That's better.
Wait till the interest rate goes down. But.
Yeah.
And Paul might want to close them all out
Same time.
at the same time, but
That would make sense. I mean, that would be easier on their workload for staff. But I'm not sure the upper echelon really care whether the workload is increased or decreased.
so that,
Yeah, I'd rather wait to considering, from what year from the Fed or whatever, that, the interest rates may be decreasing later on in the year. Possible rate cut. Maybe a little bit helps.
yeah, it would be, good. I mean, I've asked a couple of times for VFC, not officially, but just kind of when I've been around the officials, whether, because the IMG grant, because we got the IMG grant, that's a market rate finance for Albany,
Oh, that's right.
which is a $20 million finance. So at the time we entered into that project finance agreement, that didn't look too bad, but now because and now they've changed the IMG grant around, so you don't have to have a market rate financing if you get IMG.
Really?
It's just that if you've made your deal beforehand and that was your deal,
Deal's a deal.
I guess you just have to talk to Mr. Schumer and Mr. McDonald and see if
Yeah.
see if somebody could do something different for okay, I guess that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Gary, second. Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.